before joining STK, is there someone you meet early on that teaches you the unspoken rules of graffiti? Who is that person? Does someone guide you?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think, I don't think I learned anything about actual graph, like etiquette or like the rules of the game until I got into a crew. Before that, maybe I was picking up something like, like don't tag over a piece and all that kind of stuff, and the easy kind of simple stuff. You don't want to disrespect anybody. You pick that up on your own, but I don't think anyone really like sat down and mentored me. I remember seeing spray can art. I remember when the book came out, and that was hella inspiring. Because Subway art had also come out, but Subway art, we didn't have trains in LA, so I was like, okay, that's a New York thing. But when I saw spray can art, I was like, okay, this is dope, And then in there's like some stories and some, they talk a little bit about like, what's the proper way to do things or whatever. So I remember reading about it there, but really it was finally when I got into a crew that other people started like, just kind of like letting like, okay, don't go over that, or do it this way, or don't do it that way. So you just pick it up. At least that's what happened to me. I just picked it up from here and there from different people. It wasn't necessarily like I had like one mentor, What I did get mentored on, I think, was about like how to paint, like how to use a can, what kind of caps to use, like I said, when I got into STK, I was hanging around with Muriel a lot, and me and him would go paint, and I would learn a lot from him, just how he cut, just how he outlined, even what kind of caps to use to fill in and stuff like that. So I learned that from a bunch of different people, but he was the main piecer, in the crew. So like that's who I was looking up to, because I wanted to do that. Like it was dope bombing, and I remember we used to get spots and go do things or whatever. But really, it was like, how do I learn how to piece, And before STK, I do got to say this. Before STK, the very first writer that I met, I think at the time, was VYAL, and who didn't write VYAL back then. He used to write Zis one. He's gonna get mad for me for saying this.
Can you spell it?
Yeah, Z-I-S. He was Zisser. And so I remember when I met him, because I lived on the edge of Alhambra, and then he lived on the edge of Monterey Park, and there was a bridge in between, like right off of Fremont, and there was a little yard right there. And I remember that was the first place that I went to go look, because he told me, like, I forgot how I met him, but I know why, because my neighbor went to Century, which was like the continuation high school of Alhambra, which ended up being where all the writers were at Century High School. So anyways, I became friends with my neighbor, who introduced me to VYAL, again, who was writing Zis back then. But then we went, and he showed me this little yard where they were a little practice yard. And so that's where I did my first piece, was in there. And I'll never forget, the funniest thing was like, we go in there, and I'm going to do a little piece, so I'm doing like a man piece or whatever I was doing. And him and another writer, I forgot who it was, they came to the yard after I painted it, and they judged it, and they sat there and they looked at the piece, and I was like, what do you think? And they're like, we give you a 5. I got a 5 out of 10 in my first piece, so that was some funny shit. But that's how it was back then. It was just like you'd meet people, and so VYAL, he's like my lifelong, writer friend, and we're best friends and all that now and everything. And he's the first writer I ever met, and we had a lot of history together. But I think he used to be from STK for a minute, got out or whatever, and then that's when I got in. And so I ran with STK for, I want to say about a year. I guess it was around a year or so, because I remember at one point, Muriel got caught up in some stuff, and he wasn't around. So I kind of got bored, because everyone else in the crew was just bombing. And we would go bombing. Like I said, there was these two dudes, Shock and Kane back then, who were bombing a lot. I used to go with them. Rail and Joe and all these other guys, and we go bombing and stuff. But really, in my heart, I want to learn how to piece. I wanted to get better at piecing, and there was no one else in the crew who could really piece. So, and I ended up getting out of the crew just because of that. I was like, yeah, I want to explore other stuff. You know what I'm saying?